Hello, everyone, and welcome to Through the Covers. I'm Fred, and I'm really excited to finally get this podcast started. If you're someone who loves cricket conversations beyond just match highlights, then this podcast is for you. Through the Covers is where we dive deeper into the game, the latest cricketing news, player statistics, match analysis, team strategies, and of course some predictions about where the game might be heading. Cricket today is evolving faster than ever. Teams are experimenting with new approaches, players are redefining roles, and data-driven decisions are becoming more important with every tournament. Through this podcast, the goal is to understand the game from that perspective, not just what happens on the field, but why it happens. Welcome everyone to Through the Covers. Fred here, and today's clash between Sunrisers Hyderabad and Kolkata Knight Riders was a perfect case study of how T20 cricket at the highest level is increasingly being decided not by star power alone, but by clarity of roles, adaptability, and most importantly, execution of a well-defined plan. SRH's 65-run win wasn't just dominant on paper, it was methodical in nature. And if you remember, we did speak about this before the game, that in a format where margins are so thin, the team that comes in with the better blueprint and sticks to it under pressure will almost always come out on top. And today was a textbook example of that theory playing out in real time. Another fascinating layer to this is the emerging trend this season, where away teams are consistently outperforming home sides in what are supposed to be familiar conditions. And that tells you that the idea of home advantage is slowly evolving because teams are now doing their homework better, preparing for specific matchups, and trusting their processes rather than relying on conditions alone to bail them out. And SRH embodied that perfectly here. Now, if we zoom into that first innings, 226 for 8 is not just a big total. It's what I would call a structurally sound innings, because it was built in phases. There was intent in the power play without recklessness, consolidation through the middle overs without stagnation, and then a very calculated acceleration towards the death. And what stood out most was the absence of dependency on a single batter, because often in T20 cricket, teams fall into the trap of riding on one standout knock, but SRH showed the value of collective contribution, where multiple batters chipped in with impactful cameos that kept the momentum alive throughout the innings, making it extremely difficult for KKR to regain control at any point. And when you're chasing 220 plus, it's not just about hitting big shots, it's about sequencing your chase, understanding which bowlers to target, and ensuring you don't lose wickets in clusters. But that's exactly where KKR's deeper issues came to the surface. And for me, this goes back to the auction strategy. Because from day one, it felt like they weren't building a squad tailored for Eden Gardens or even for varied conditions. Instead, they seemed to invest heavily in players who had one exceptional season, banking on past peaks rather than consistent adaptability. And what we're seeing now is those one-season wonders struggling to replicate that impact, which creates a ripple effect on team balance and decision-making. Again, it's important to say this is still early in the tournament, so there is time to correct course. But these are structural concerns that don't get fixed overnight, and it reflected in the chase as well, where there was a visible lack of clarity. No defined tempo, no clear matchups being targeted, and an almost reactive approach once early wickets fell, which led to a complete collapse, getting bowled out in just 16 overs and beyond the loss itself. That 70-odd run margin is a serious dent to their net run rate, which, as we've seen in past seasons, can become a decisive factor later in the league stage. Now, transitioning into the next fixture, we've got Chennai Super Kings taking on Punjab Kings at Chepauk. And this is where the conversation around conditions becomes really interesting, because Chepauk has traditionally been synonymous with slow turning tracks that favor spin and make run scoring difficult. But in recent seasons, there's been a noticeable shift towards flatter surfaces, which has changed the way teams approach games here. And more importantly, it aligns quite well with CSK's batting philosophy, which is built on experience, game awareness, and the ability to pace an innings rather than just brute force. If we look at the batting first versus batting second dynamic at Chepauk in this new phase, it's no longer heavily skewed towards chasing like it used to be. Because flatter pitches mean teams batting first can post competitive totals in the 170 to 190 range and actually defend them with disciplined bowling, especially if they control the middle overs. From a matchup perspective, this game could hinge on how CSK's middle order handles PBKS's pace attack, particularly in the death overs, and conversely, how PBKS batters navigate the spin choke that CSK traditionally apply through the middle phase, because even on flatter tracks, control in those overs often dictates the outcome. And despite CSK not having the best start in their previous outing, writing them off would be a mistake. Because if there's one thing this franchise has consistently shown over the years, it's their ability to absorb early setbacks, recalibrate, and come back stronger. And that's why I'm backing Chennai Super Kings to bounce back in this contest. And with that, if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe to Through the Covers wherever you're listening, and make sure to follow us on Instagram to stay connected with all our episodes and cricket conversations.